And somehow, Luke, it's 2024.
We're here.
We somehow have woken up and it is a new year, and coming with that means we have all new challenges in FPL. And I think we're gonna do for this podcast, we're gonna do a little reflection, a little looking forward, maybe put on a little bit of our prophecy hats to see if we can guess what's gonna happen in 2024 going forward with FPL. So I don't know, man. It's gonna be a fun little podcast here. What do you think?
Hey everyone, to start out with Happy New Year. Hope you all had a great 2023 and your 2024 is filled of, great times, some learning and some growing as people, but also just lots of green arrows.
Yeah, those green arrows are necessary.
Which is what we're here for, right? We're trying to, we're telling you guys a little bit about, how to manage your FPL teams and our perspective on things and everything. So I think what we're going to try to do here in this little section is we're going to try to tell you all some of the things that we've learned from 2023. And hopefully that can translate into some positives for you all, right? As you try to manage your FPL team, get better, and continue to pursue those green arrows. So, Paul, do you want to take it away? And what is your kind of first takeaway from 2023 after looking back on your team?
So last year, going into 2023 was really my whole first year playing FPL because Luke had played a little bit before, and I think I had maybe towards the tail end of the last season. But going into 2023, there was a lot of stuff I didn't really,
right.
I guess,
FPL has a lot
about the game.
FPL has a lot of moving
internally.
pieces, and sometimes it takes a while to figure out the lay of the land.
Not even really that, but like kind of like my ethos on how I wanted to play the game, essentially,
Right.
And I think that's a big thing to figure out because as Premier League fans, I think a lot of us have biases. We have different conceptions about players in our heads that like are different than the actual stats that people produce. And as an FPL manager, at the end of the day, I know a lot of us get wrapped up in the emotion of things, good week, bad week, but like at the end of the day, it's really just numbers, And I mean, not to decrease from what any of these players do, but I mean, realistically, it's kind of like the whole Moneyball approach of, you just need to not necessarily win games, but you have to produce the most points in your mini league or in the FPL landscape,
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so kind of like taking away the emotion of it, taking away all these things, that's probably the biggest hurdle I faced this year. And I think I've gotten better at it, but it's difficult to do, Luke.
I think that kind of ties into one of my areas that I want to improve on as well from 2023 is I feel like everyone has some blind spots, right? Where you maybe favor some players over others for whatever reason it might be, right? Everyone's a little different in how they do that, but it's being better identifying those blind spots, figuring them out, and then trying to, make sure that's not something that goes forward. Because, I mean, going back to last season, missed out on Marcus Rashford, his insane run.
Yep.
Where he just tore up the Premier League, and maybe we were fair in assuming that it was going to run out sometime soon. Because let's look at this season, right? I mean, the numbers have drastically reverted to the mean there for Rashford, but I think for this season, the big hole in my team has been not having Salah, right? That
Absolutely.
is I think it's 150 points at this point. 156 points I'm missing from my team from not having Salah.
It also there is balance too, because you had other players in your team returning at the same time.
Right. But let's assume that
you're probably missing maybe 60, 70.
Yeah. I would say at least
maybe
70
more,
or 80 out of that total, right? And if I had 70 or 80 more points, I'd be sitting at about 1,180 points right now. And that would skyrocket my overall rank, right?
So. Also, Luke, real quick, I'm going to interject. So one of my New Year's resolutions is to not leave points on my bench anymore, because if any of you follow our social pages, we've tweeted it out, we've put it on different social medias, but I had 40 points on my bench last weekend.
Yeah,
and that's in a week where I ended up on 59 points, and I think you said the average was like 65.
The average was 59, I believe.
It's 59. So if I somehow integrate those players into my starting 11, like, there's just so, and over the whole season, I think now I'm around maybe like 150, 100 to like somewhere in the 150, somewhere in the 170 range of points on my bench throughout the season. Those points mean so much to my overall rank that now I've dropped down into the 1.1 million range.
Yeah, one of our
So
frequented podcast guests, Kyle, came up with the game to where, instead of just picking our teams, what we could do is just pick players from Paul's bench, and then they are guaranteed to return. Which I like the sound of that. Really, I think it'd be a path to lots of green arrows if you just decide who Paul's going to put on the bench and bring him into your team in the starting 11.
yeah, if anybody wants, I can start like a private Discord. I'll only charge like $200 a month for it, where it's gonna be like this is the best way to beat Vegas. Really, you just look at my bench.
Is it
and you
Vegas that
gamble.
sets the lines for every Premier League fixture?
Yeah,
That's how
whoever
it
is.
works. Yeah,
I mean, I'm sure Vegas has numbers for Premier League games.
I'm sure they do too, but I don't
Obviously,
think
me and Luke are not
setter.
into sports gambling, so we have
Yeah.
not entered that world.
And
But
may it forever
anyway,
stay. So
the idea is that my bench is a little cheat code apparently that I don't know how to use. So
yeah, it definitely is. It's kind of insane just how many points you've left on the bench this season, and a lot of them I see your thought process, right? But I think what we're trying to say here, right, with our New Year's resolutions of sorts for FPL is we're trying to find ways to improve, and trying to find a way to kind of optimize your bench better is probably a great path for you to go down, Paul.
yeah, I agree, Luke. But there's also been some positives for us. What do you think is the main thing that you've grown with in FPL in 2023, Luke?
So the main positive that I see in how I'm playing FPL now is
That was such a wordy answer to be like,
No,
give
I'm-
myself time to think. Like it was like when the teacher like calls on you and you're like, well, I don't
You
know
just
the answer.
rephrase the
but
question.
I'm gonna roll it
Yeah.
out for as long as I possibly can. But go ahead.
I was
Sorry, I just thought-
rephrasing
I just thought that
the
was funny.
question for everyone out there in case they missed the question for some reason.
Sure.
The main takeaway that I think I've been really good at lately is I think I've started picking my captains with more of a statistical backing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for example, Foden's been playing really well the past 3 to 4 weeks. He looks great in those little half spaces. And following his performance against Everton, right? Against Everton, he looked incredible, right? And then they had Sheffield next. So I captained Foden, felt great about it because he ended up on a really big return of 12 points, right? His almost a season high, 1 point short of that. And I was like, this couldn't go any better. And then Salah goes off, right? And that completely neutralizes my captaincy there. But overall, I'm still really happy with my decision to captain Foden, right?
Mhm.
Not having Salah in my team, Foden was the best captaincy in my opinion based upon who they're playing, and it's nice to see that pay out. So I think captaincy is a big thing as well, and then I need to be better about picking my transfers more selectively. Instead of going for players who I think look good and have the possibility of returning, I need to go for players that I feel like are going to almost guarantee me points, getting returns.
Mm-hmm.
Example, I brought in Hoyland, and he looked great, right? Had lots of chances, but never put the ball in the back of the net.
It's the same thing as the Nicholas Jackson conversation, you know?
Exactly. So it's about selecting players that we know are going to return, even if I'm a little late into it, right? Say someone, for example, Cole Palmer. That's someone who I could have had in my wild card. I decided not to. And I went with Nkuku. Maybe not my best selection there, right? Because if I had Cole Palmer, another 18 points, my game week's looking very different right now.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
But odds are he would have been on a bench. So it's an internal dilemma. But I think from an FPL perspective, I've gotten a lot better at trying to figure out my thought process and how I pick my players when I transfer them in and out.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like, I think it's a huge asset as an FPL manager to have that skill set, you know? So
It is.
hopefully it'll only get better in 2024.
I sure hope so. Paul, what is your positive that you mainly want to take away from FPL from the past season?
I think kind of like it's a little bit along your line of thinking, but I've always been more of a eye test person. Like, I think the underlying numbers are something that I like going into this year. I've always been like, like I look at them some, but I don't really do too much. And I think lately, especially over the last like 4 months, I've been a lot better about actually diving deep on the numbers, understanding that yeah, this person looks like as the word I think I like to use a lot is a touchstone or like a figurehead of an attack. Are they so you can look at it and watch this team play and you're like, okay, so yeah, that's possible, but what do the numbers say behind that too? So kind of just like taking these two different things that I mean, I think a lot of people are in one camp or another camp, or some people do both, obviously, but kind of combining those is another dimension to helping me be a better FPL manager, and I can easily still get better at both aspects of that. So it's exciting going into 2024. It's obviously riding the ship is big for me right now because I dropped down to 1.1 million, and I think like 3 or 4 weeks ago I was up around 300K. So we
Welcome
got
to the 7-figure club. But I will say, right, you did wild card. Your team should be looking good for the next 4 to 5 weeks, hopefully.
It's still skeptical.
But the thing about picking those players that you did, right, you believed in them. They've been playing well lately. I will say Elise is injured now, which really kind of is going to be harmful for your team.
That one kills me, and I'm
we'll get into it later on. But it is unfortunate to hear about that injury for him. So hopefully he comes back. By the time game week 21 rolls around in 3 months from now,
we have enough fucking time. Like,
yeah, hopefully he's back and fit. If not, hopefully he's in training, right? So we'll keep our fingers crossed for that one. But do you have any more takeaways from 2023 you want to share with everyone?
Not really. I think we kind of touched on a lot of big points. I think another really good thing, I guess I'll add one more thing. Having a community of people to talk to about this stuff makes the game so much more fun. Whether it's, I mean, it doesn't have to be somebody you see day to day or whatever, but like having people on Twitter that you can interact with, having people on Instagram, or just like in any setting to communicate with people and do that. I think it makes the game so much more fun because I think sometimes it's easy to be in your own little echo chamber where like you think, oh, woe is me, this is so bad, but like everybody struggles with this game. It's so hard to predict, like we talk about all the time. So we're always here to chat with people about it. We're always here for discussion, and I just think it really makes the game a lot more fun to me.
It does. I think the banter within the game itself can be frustrating at times, but nevertheless, it is a lot more fun to do it with a community of people.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just sitting there watching match, and if it doesn't go your way, it sucks. But the good thing is when it goes well, that is a great feeling. And ultimately play the game for fun, right? As we have continually said throughout our podcasts, if you're not enjoying playing FPL and you find it's more negative than positive, maybe reevaluate your relationship with it a little bit to where detach a little bit, take some time away, come back, and then maybe you'll appreciate it a little bit more and it won't be quite as much, right? Because sometimes it can be a lot, If you have a bad week, try not to let it impact you because, as we've always say, once the ball gets thrown out on the pitch, there's not much you can do about it. And all of it's up to chance. I mean, there's so many different instances we can look at over the past entire season that variance is extremely high in matches like these. It's such a high level when the margins are very fine. It's hard to predict what's going to happen, right?
Yeah, I mean, some weeks you're a Jota fucking disgraceful dive in the box away from having a good week, and then he dives and your week just completely changes. So
that does happen, right? And so it's something we have to prepare for.
Can't predict it.
And you just got to roll with the punches. So we really appreciate you guys for taking this journey with us through 2023, and we look forward to many more years with you all. Learning about FPL, growing in how we manage our teams, and just getting better and having fun while we do it. So thank you guys for joining us on that journey. But I think we are going to take a little break here, and then we'll be right back to talk to you all about kind of our outlook for the remaining half of the FPL season.
All right.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the pod. So we are going to start talking about our ideal way at looking at how the next half of this FPL season is going to pan out. And the first point that I want to bring up is I think that Christopher and Cuckoo is about to tear apart the league.
Okay.
The reason why I say this is I think Chelsea altogether have been struggling and riding the performances of a few players that have carried them through fixtures that otherwise they would have lost, right? If we look at Chelsea's overview, their best player by far has been Cole Palmer.
Easily.
He has 4 assists and 8 goals. And through those 8, he has 17 matches, right? So that's 12 goal involvements. Those are really good numbers. But he's not surrounded by a cast that's overly reliable. You look at Nicholas Jackson, he struggled mightily. If you subtract the hat trick that he scored against a 9-man Tottenham side, he's on 2 assists and 4 goals, which his XG has been ridiculously high this season, where he's one of the top XG performers. He's 4th overall in the league in XG, with 12, and he only has 7 goals. If you subtract those 3 goals, his XG, he's at least halving his expected goals. So that's not something good, right? So I think Nkunku coming in the side is going to be really good for Cole Palmer and Nkunku, but I think Nkunku should be the one who really benefits from his arrival. And why I say this is I think that from an FPL perspective, Nkunku is someone we can look at to kind of occupy that third forward spot. That Holland will be back, maybe Watkins, maybe Solanke, and then Nkunku I think will be in that conversation.
I think he will be, but I think it's going to be difficult for people though. Like with budgets, like I think Nkunku is a little more expensive.
Right, but say even if you're moving from Watkins to Nkunku, you're still saving cash by doing that.
Yeah, no, I agree, but like I don't know. I think we need to give it time.
Yeah, and that's
obviously
a shout,
this
right?
is a prediction, so like yeah,
that's what I'm saying is over. It could be by game week 23. It could be by game week 30, right? But I really think he's going to move into prime form, and we'll see. Maybe he takes penalties from Cole Palmer. I'm not sure what's going to happen with that. If he does take
Palmer
penalties,
has been good though on pins.
So. He has been really good, right? So it's kind of up in the air. We do not know the answer to that, but in my opinion, I think Nkunku could be a great asset to have going forward in FPL.
I mean, I think that's a great shout. Like Nkunku is a fucking baller. Like if anybody like has taken the time to actually watch him play, and in a team where he kind of has the reins to do what he wants, he can just tear teams apart. And I think Chelsea have had a very chaotic season, which is on par with who they are. But I mean, like you talked about with Jackson, like I mean the hat trick against Spurs, the 4-4 game against City, losing 4-1 to Newcastle, 3-2 against Brighton. I mean, there's just been a lot of chaos, and I think you're right. It's just only going to get more chaotic with Nkunku coming back, but maybe a good chaotic for Chelsea. But I think he probably will be a viable FPL asset going forward.
I think so. So let's pivot into your first point, Paul. What are you thinking over there?
Let me pull up my notes. Okay. So my first point that I think is probably going to be the most important going into the whole run of the next fixtures coming up for the rest of the year is City is back.
Okay.
City they seem like they're kind of rounding into form, and this is before they get De Bruyne, Doku, and Haaland back healthy. And whenever this is kind of the discussion I think we have a lot about City. Like we're just sitting around chatting about this last night about who we think City's best 11 is. And it's kind of like last year, whenever Pep found the best 11 that he liked that fit the squad that he had, they just go into world beater mode. And
I'm just picturing this, right? When we talked about this last night, we talked about ideally having Haaland playing as 9 and then KDB and Foden both playing underneath him as kind of like joint number 10s. But just imagine that triangle of those three, how well they'd interplay together. Haaland's hold-up play. I mean, he's even really good playing defeat as well. But KDB and Foden interlinking, playing into Haaland, playing runs in behind. It's going to be, if that's what happens, I will be so excited to watch them play every match because that's going to be beautiful football.
Yeah, it's going to be scary for the rest of the Premier League. Whenever I said, whenever Pep figures it out and he gets his team in good form, and they're literally sitting third in the
I think
table.
they're third in the
second.
table. It's Liverpool, then Villa, and then I think City, and Arsenal's fourth.
Yeah, they're literally sitting at 40 points, 5 points behind Liverpool right now with a game in hand too. So all I'm saying is watch out, Premier League and FPL managers. Find a way to attach yourself to City, because I think especially when Haaland gets back and we know he's healthy and he's in the squad, I think he's gonna. Especially, I mean, we always like last year. I mean, with De Bruyne, there were so many goals he had that were just easy tap-ins because De Bruyne can just find him in spaces that nobody else can.
I think for game week 21, Holland will probably not be coming back into my team, at least for the time being. I'm
Yeah, it would be
probably going to try
difficult.
to ride that one out and go into 22 with 2 free transfers. Maybe use the 2, roll again, and then by 24, I want to have 2 free transfers because at least 24, definitely 25, will be the players from AFCON and Asia Cup will be returning. And you want to have 2 free transfers so you can hopefully get Salah and Son back in. But with the way teams are set up right now, it's going to be very difficult for people to get Son, Salah, and Holland all back into a team.
So
I think we could see early wild cards.
that's what I was about to suggest.
But what I also think is very possible as well is I think that from game week 21, and this was the second point I wanted to bring up, game week 21 to 24 is a time that it's going to be very chaotic, and the template is going to be hard to find, right? People do have lateral moves they can make easily by downgrading, leaving the cash in, and you could easily get Salah or Son back in, which is fine. But I think that there's a huge advantage here because Holland will be coming back, so that's an easy move. But in those midfield slots, there's going to be players that people are selecting that they haven't had to select in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So there's going to be a lot of ground to be made up or lost depending on who we bring in or take out.
Dun dun dun. We'll see how it plays out.
We will. But I'm optimistic. I think that whenever we're looking at the options that we have out there, there's a ton
There's a
of
wealth.
midfield
There's a wealth
options
of
out there,
options
right?
in the midfield. It's not the forwards.
And as we'll talk about later, with the January window, also have players coming in as well that are kind of some fresh blood that could be interesting for our FPL teams as well. So keep our eyes on that, but really just try to focus on these next 4 game weeks because there is lots of space and real estate that we can grow into, right? I think green arrows could be very, very possible, and I also expect some pretty low scores, in my opinion, over the FPL game weeks.
Possibly.
Yeah.
All right, look, you want to bounce to your second point?
That was my second point.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
No, I'll go into my next one, right? So while I was doing research for this, I stumbled upon something that I didn't even realize up to this point. But whenever you look at the Premier League table based upon home and away form, if you look at it based upon away form, Newcastle United are 19th in the league.
Interesting.
19th.
Yeah,
they have a
they've been
total
horrible on the road.
of 5 points away from home. Their goal difference is -6. And that, if we think about Liverpool when they just played them at Anfield, they easily could have scored 8 or 9 if they were on that day, right? With highest XG ever in a single Premier League match by one team.
What, 7.25, right?
Yeah, something crazy like that. And the bottom 3 in this table, according to this, is Fulham, Newcastle, and Sheffield United. So we're not shocked by that, but it is very, very surprising to see Newcastle at the very bottom of that, and they're lucky they have good home form, is all I'm thinking, right?
That kind of just shows what St. James does for them, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
When you have so many injuries, suspensions, they've had truly, we said Chelsea had a chaotic season, but Newcastle really has too. Falling out of the Champions League when it looked like they were going to win their group easily, and then, man, it's been a rough run for them, but we know Newcastle will be back. They have the money to do it. I think they have the right coach. They have the right setup. So We'll see what happens over the second half of the year with
And
them.
it seems like in Newcastle, there's kind of some stuff going on behind the scenes, but Newcastle will weather the storm. They have the financial backing. I'm sure there are some rumors of Calvin Phillips going to Newcastle. He would provide some much needed solidity in the
Mm-hmm.
midfield that they just don't really have a DM right now
Yeah,
who's
I mean,
versatile and can facilitate play for their wingers and attackers. I think he'd be a great fit for them. And personally, I would just like to see Calvin Phillips playing again in the Premier League
yeah, you've
because
always been a big
he's
Calvin
very
Phillips
he's
fan.
very talented. He's a great player. I enjoy watching him play. So hopefully he does get that move to Newcastle and not going to Serie A like some possible
Yeah.
linkages have been out there. But overall, Newcastle, very disappointing season so far based upon how they performed last season. So we'll just see how they play out the rest of the season. I think now that they're out of Europe, they can take a deep breath, kind of rest up, recover.
Mm-hmm.
Although they do have cup fixtures coming up soon. So, the grind continues, but
Yeah.
hopefully they get their feet back under them for the Premier
The
League.
January window is open now, though, too. So
Yeah, and
they
big
have
impact
options.
there. We also see Tottenham bringing in another center back,
Mm-hmm.
which he's very interesting. He's a very aggressive player, but we don't have to dive into that. Just keep an
Mm-hmm.
eye on him.
All right, Luke, I'm going to give you my next point real quick. Okay,
Alright.
so I think going forward, Trent Alexander-Arnold is a must-have.
A must-have. Okay.
He's rounding into really good form, and Liverpool's run of fixtures going forward are so fucking good. So they play Bournemouth away, Chelsea at home, Arsenal away, which is easily the most difficult, and then Burnley at home, Brentford away, Luton at home, and Nottingham Forest away. I mean, that's probably one of the best run of fixtures for any team in the Premier League over a 7-game stretch throughout this whole season.
It is. It's kind of a shame that Salah's going to be gone for part
It
of
is.
that.
It
right?
is. But it also that's why I think Trent's value may decrease a little bit without Salah up there on the right in front of him. But at the same time, I also see it as, I mean, if any team can deal with the loss of Salah, it's probably Liverpool
Yeah.
because they have so many different attacking options. And honestly, as an FPL manager, I don't know which FPL asset, which attacker is the best one to go for because I think it's probably going to be goals spread around every other week. It's going to be hard to predict. I mean, I think Jota, Darwin are probably the two I would fall to. But I mean, you can make an argument for almost all of them.
Yeah, I think you could. I would prefer myself to probably see Diaz slide over to the right side Salah spot, have Jota play through the middle, then I'd probably play Nunez as a winger. Just
And
because
then Gakpo up
I
top.
kind of but also Nunez would be kind of inverting to where he runs into those half spaces, right? But also just playing him behind using his pace.
I would prefer for Darwin to stay up top, considering I have him in my FPL team.
Right. I think,
but hey, whatever.
I'm not exactly, I haven't done a deep analysis of how Klopp likes to line up with Nunez, especially that Salah. So take that for what you will. But I do think Jota is going to be very popular. He scored a goal over the weekend. Should have scored two, frankly.
He got an assist.
But overall, it's going to be. I think Trent is the safest call if you're with Liverpool.
Yeah.
He over the festive fixtures, so this is anytime matches after December 1st. He led the league in XA, right? And that's as a defender playing in sometimes a very deep position. He still managed to do that, and he also has a non-penalty XG of 1.36. During the course of that time, he had 1 goal and 2 assists. So kind of underperforming in his numbers, and that can be looked at as teammates as well, right? Maybe just not finishing the chances they should. So I agree with you. I think Trent is essential, but I think he's going to be a big part of people enabling Haaland to come back into their team.
Like taking Trent out for
I see a lot of people.
I could see that. I mean, I think I'll have to get creative to get Holland back in whenever I go towards that too. So,
and also whenever you look at it, I think that around 23, 24, whenever Salah and Son are coming back, I think that Trent will be going by the wayside for certain for a lot of people.
yeah, because if we're gonna want to fit in like 3 premiums of Salah, Son, and Holland,
Trent can't be in there unless he just goes on an absolute heater over the next couple of weeks.
It
And
could
then
be. I mean, he has the right run of fixtures for it, so
he does. He does. And, the possibility of having that clean sheet point is really, really nice when you're pairing it up with someone who's just as attacking as he is.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. So very, very interesting stuff there. As far as I'm concerned, I think that I don't even know if this is just purely from an FPL perspective, but I've been really impressed with what Luton has been doing. They have had a fair amount of luck. Let's be honest here. The underlying numbers, they've conceded the highest XG out of any club in the league. At the moment, it's at 47.14 XG, and they've conceded 37 goals. So they have statistically lucked out of not conceding 10 goals.
Yeah.
Those 10 goals could drastically swing their season, right?
Oh, dude, that
the amount of points you can lose from that with how fine the margins that can be, that would make a huge difference. So we could see them revert to the mean a little bit, but at home they've been so
really good at
clinical, efficient, and they almost came back against Chelsea. They had
set
chances.
pieces, man. They have really hammered those set pieces to the point where they're very, like, if you get up a corner against Luton at home, it's like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
Like, we hear the footsteps.
I think that it's almost arguable that some of their assets are becoming very viable assets for our teams. If you look at Doughty, their left back, I hope I'm saying that right. And then Ross Barkley, someone who's really creative in the middle for them, playing also does some set pieces as well, depending on the position in the pitch. And then Adebayo, their striker, he is just a presence in the air. He's huge. If there's a ball in the box that he can get his head on, odds are he's gonna get his. It's just a question if he can put it in the back of the net, right?
Yeah.
But he is massive, and maybe someone we could look at who's a really cheap enabler at some point if we need that. So,
Yeah,
some food for thought there.
It is. Do you have any other points you're gonna make going forward, Luke? I think I basically. Oh wait, I think I have one more I want to make real quick.
Okay, go for it.
Basically, it's kind of what we've been talking about this whole pod, but like, good luck fighting the big boys in FPL. Like Holland, Salah, Son, Watkins, Bowen. I think we need to attach ourselves to as many of those players as possible and ride them out for the rest of the season. Because it's one of those things where, I mean, playing differentials, I think, is a great thing for maybe one player in your team or here and there every once in a while. But there's a reason why they collect the most points throughout the year. That's because they put themselves in the best positions, and we actually do the same as FPL managers, because like me and Luke talked about earlier in the pod, missing out on Salah is something that is basically a turning point of our whole season, really. Missing out on that amount of points is something that makes it really hard for us to compete with other managers because it's so consistent. Really, it's consistency when it comes down to it, So
It is. It truly is. But as we said in the beginning, one of my goals of the year is to kind of identify those gaps, where I'm not really seeing where my weaknesses are. And that's a big one that I need to work on. I think you're saying you need to work on it as well. So just continually improving in that way. And that's really all we can do. Because I'm sure we're going to be playing FPL for a very long time. There's many, many seasons to come, and we really look forward to that.
We do. We very much do.
And if nothing else, then from this year, we've learned a lot, right? Our rank may not be what we want. That's okay. But next year, maybe it'll be better because we learned this valuable lesson.
It's the thought process that counts, not the points, right?
Exactly. The points are subjective, kind of abstract.
Yeah, they're not measurable.
Kind of ethereal, right? I don't know if it really does it quantify or equate to anything. Not really at the end of the day.
No.
Nah, just kidding.
Yeah, but let's take one more break real quick, and then we'll come back and play do you have another point to make before? Sorry, I don't want to cut you off.
No, I do have one more point. So let me go ahead. Wrap on this.
Go ahead.
Be very, very weary of not having Holland in your team. That's pretty much all I think I want to say on that. Because If he comes back fully fit and City are looking the way they do right now,
And KDB involved.
with KDB in the mix and maybe John Stones being healthy, if they get all of these going, different variables going at the right time, good luck.
They're going to be beating people 7-0.
And then my final take is Arsenal have already probably lost the league, in my opinion, because they cannot be dropping points. If City go on a run where they rip off 8 straight wins and Arsenal are faltering right now, that's really difficult to manage.
Yeah, I'm not going to turn this into me bemoaning Arsenal and everything, but simple fact is they're not creative enough. They don't score enough goals, so they need to pivot. They need to change things, and if they don't, you are correct, I believe, Luke.
Even if you are an Arsenal fan, I'm not trying to drive this home or anything, but think about it from this perspective. If City go on a run where they win 8 straight, do you think Arsenal can do the same thing right now with the team they're playing?
Hell no.
Exactly.
There's no question about it.
That concludes my point, and we'll take a little break and then be right back with our final segment for you guys.
Arsenal are winning the Champions League, though. All right, everybody, welcome back. We're going to do one little segment and then wrap and get out of here for you, but we're going to have fun with this one because we are going to have we're each going to suggest transfers into a Premier League team as an FPL manager that we would love to see. So, Luke, I'm going to throw it over to you and let you start. Who would you like to see join a Premier League team?
So, the first pick that I have here is a little under the radar, but I think it would be really very interesting overall impact for the league and then FPL as well.
Mm-hmm.
What I would love to see.
Let's hear it. We want to know.
I'm kind of waffling a little bit on this.
Just go with it. Let's just hear. We'll let the people decide.
I would love to see Antoine Griezmann at Liverpool.
Shut up.
Yeah.
I had Griezmann going to a different team, but
who'd you have him going to?
Who do you think?
Well, let's just talk about it right now. Go ahead.
Spurs.
Why Spurs?
Imagine him up top.
Up top, he plays as like a 10.
No, I think he can play as a striker for Spurs.
I mean, he can do anything, right? He could play as a winger, he could play as a 10. He could play as a 9.
I like him playing as a striker, as like pseudo, somewhat false 9 for the Spurs.
I think Spurs need an out-and-out 9. With the wingers they have and Madison playing underneath, I think they need someone who's strong, can hold up play, but finishes like.
I think Griezmann can do that though. I think he fits that profile.
I don't think he's strong enough, and I think he has the interplay. I don't think he has the hold up play that they're necessarily looking for.
I don't know, man. He is in, and the whole point of Griezmann, I think this is why we both mentioned him to different teams, is he is in killer form right now. He's probably maybe in the best form of his career.
Yeah, he's incredible at the moment. But the reason why I chose Liverpool is I love the idea of him playing as a 10 in their system where he can play the ball into channels for Salah, interplay with Trent, and then also at the same time, I think he'd be really good for Nunez, right? Because he has that ball playing ability that their deep lying midfielders have. So Szoboszlai, McAllister, Indo kind of lacks in that department a little bit, but he makes up for it in other ways. I see Griezmann as someone who could really piece together this attack and almost usher them into that, possibly next phase without Salah. Is kind of how I see it.
I mean, he is 32,
getting
so
older,
it's like
right?
how many years?
But I think he's a good kind of segue between those during Salah and then after Salah times. So I think Griezmann would be a lot of fun there, and I would love that fit personally from an FPL perspective.
Yeah, I honestly, Spurs or Liverpool. I think what you're saying makes more sense for his, like, if he wanted to go to the perfect fit. I think Liverpool makes more sense, but honestly, I would just love to see him play for Ainge and for Spurs. I think he would be like, he fits the vibe ethos of that team, to the point where I think it would make a lot of sense. But I'm gonna go to my next one because this kind of segues into this. I would love to see Harry Kane at Arsenal.
Sorry, I was gonna drink water.
Yeah, no,
I do
that's
like
fine.
that shout, and it's one that I made. What I think one of the pods at the end of the year last season.
You did.
Um, that would be disgusting on so many different levels, from a Tottenham Arsenal perspective, but also just how clinical he is with playing the creativity of someone with Odegaard, Saka, Martinelli on the wings. It would be ridiculous if he was
Dude,
on Arsenal.
he has 21 goals and 5 assists halfway through the Bundesliga season. Well, this is counting all competitions. So I mean, but like 21 goals and 5 assists. If you took half of that output, so basically if you took 11 goals, 2 assists, and threw it into Arsenal's attack, do you know how much that would help them?
Yeah, no, it
And
for sure
yes,
would.
obviously it's a different setup than what he's playing at Bayern, and the competition's probably different and all that stuff. But I mean, Harry Kane is one of the best strikers of our generation, and you just can't argue. Like he's so clinical. He's so good at other aspects of the game that Arsenal are lacking right now. And I also think, in saying that, I think Jesus is really good at what he does for Arsenal up top, but he can't stay healthy, and there's not the dynamic, constant goal scoring.
He's not clinical.
Yeah, it's just
Right.
not dynamic enough from like and consistent enough too. That's also
I think one of the major attributes of Jesus is that he links up so well with other players.
he does.
But the point that people have always fallen back on, I feel like, is that he does so much for Martinelli. And now that Martinelli he's got to have an injury right now. I don't know what's going on, but Martinelli has not performed up to the level that we have come to
He's
expect with him.
struggling big time, which
And
yeah.
this leads me into my second transfer
Okay.
that I was ideally thinking of. Weirdly enough, it had to involve Arsenal. I think Kvaratskhelia from Napoli going to Arsenal and playing as the left winger there would be filthy.
Yeah.
Imagine him going at people with the pace and the creativity that he has, and how well they would link up together with if Harry Kane was there. But even
Harry Kane.
let's say it's not Harry Kane. Let's say it's someone who, let's say Tony goes to Arsenal, or someone of that level, right? Even that would be a great pairing for them, I think, because Tony plays so well in the air. His hold up play is incredible, and it would allow Arsenal to kind of play in a different way that they don't have at the moment. Even though Jesus is surprisingly good at winning balls in the air, and giving his teammates a good chance at second balls. So I don't know. I just think his creativity and the way that he is so direct at times would
Yeah.
be a great fit for Arsenal, because they're missing Martinelli a lot right now.
Yeah,
right?
dude, no, they're
Think about
struggling.
all the goals and the chances he created last season, and now they're just not getting that from him. So maybe Arteta needs to look for someone for the left wing in the window, or maybe it's time to give Reece Nelson a nice run of form.
ESR too. There's
Yeah,
I think Arsenal, they have a lot of options, and I think Arteta's really scared to kind of change up too much. I mean, he does make alterations, but like, Martinelli's starting on the left, Saka starting on the right, like there's these certain things that he won't change. And I think at this point in the season, like we were talking about earlier, if they want to win the league, which I think actually really means a lot to Arsenal at this point, they have to change stuff.
I have a piping hot take for you about Arsenal.
Okay.
If they get Tony, I think Saka and Martinelli should flip wings. Instead of having your wingers invert and cut in on their strong foot, I think they should be playing the byline and getting balls in the box. And I would flip those wingers, completely change how they play. And at the same time, I think that would be, really conducive if they get someone. Ozenheim is, I think, the golden standard. I don't
He
know if
is,
that's going to
yeah.
happen, especially in January.
He's the golden goose right now,
But let's say they get Tony, someone who's great in the air. I wonder who would take pins at that point. But I would uninvert the wingers, flip wings, and see how that played out for a little bit.
I don't hate it. I don't hate that idea. I think it's different. I think it adds a new element. I think one of the biggest things about Arsenal is it's very predictable what they're doing right now. I think teams know exactly what's going to happen, and they're just setting up a low block, and Arsenal can't get through it. They just can't this year. So,
Nope.
any new ideas? We're here for it, Luke. So maybe you want to slide into the Arsenal camp.
That's not going to be happening, but I'm
What?
more than happy to offer my ideas and try to help out, because, I think they need a little help right now.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Okay, Luke. I'm gonna suggest my next transfer, and I am nothing if not biased, and I love my little baby Eagles to death. And
Didn't see this coming.
we're bringing Christian Pulisic to West Ham.
West Ham.
Mm-hmm.
I could have thought of some better places than that.
So I was looking at it, and I don't like on the layout of the league right now. I think West Ham would probably be the best fit for him.
Tell me why you think this.
I think he would fit Moyes' system where the way they've been catching people is on the counter, and I think they've been lacking a lot of like, even though they've been playing well at times. I mean, they've been lacking certain things in attack, and I think Pulisic can bring stuff to the middle. He can bring stuff on the left wing while Bowen stays on the right. If Bowen plays, I think Bowen and Pulisic would have a great relationship.
Yeah, but you have Kudus there. I don't think Pulisic is going to displace him.
He doesn't have to. I think Kudus could play on the left. He could play through the middle. Pulisic could go on the left. Like, I think it could easily work. And honestly, I don't want him to leave Milan right now because I think it's a great fit for him. But as an FPL manager, I also would love to have a baby eagle in my team that could just like soar and fly around. And I think Pulisic at West Ham, he would get consistent minutes there for sure. There's no doubt.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that would definitely be that would be a good fit for Pulisic.
Who do you think
is the best fit for Pulisic?
Yeah.
Out of Premier League teams right now, I think Newcastle would be a great fit. He could just slide in on the right and take Almiron's spot. I think Anthony Gordon's pretty locked on the left wing right now. I don't think Pulisic would displace him, but I'd be fine with Pulisic playing on the right wing with Newcastle.
Newcastle was the first one to come to mind because we've talked about this all the time, and I just think Newcastle's not in a great place right now, and they will be. So I mean, maybe it would be a good transfer, but at this current moment,
the other team that comes to mind is Villa. I think he'd be really good playing in. They kind of play a left mid is really what they do.
Yeah,
but I think
he could also play through the middle too.
Yeah, he offers a versatility that I think they would need because Diaby's kind of out of
which is
Emery's
so shocking.
Good graces.
We thought he was going to absolutely just smash it this year.
Bailly's been playing on the right, but he's very injury prone. What's his name? He is out for the season. I can't remember his name. Zaniolo. I don't think he's ever going to see the pitch again. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
But Villa would be a good shout in my opinion. But really, that's kind of I think he'd be a good fit on a lot of teams. But that's probably the best fit, in my opinion.
Yeah. All right. Well, my point's over. So.
Okay. Well, my final point that I think could be so much fun. I would love to see a Stupinan go to City.
I like that a lot. I fucking love that.
I think his attacking nature and the way that he would be able to play under Pep, right? He'd be able to bomb forward and also have that protection behind him. And he would kind of be your Kyle Walker replacement just on the other side of the pitch.
Yeah, he'd basically be a winger for him.
Pep can play in that way where he still has three center backs and just have, Vardiol actually plays a center back now. And then maybe Stones or someone plays that center back who plays on the right side, right? Not your central center back. So I think a Stupinan could be an amazing fit there. And I really, really think it's something that City do need, right? Because it gives them a difference in attack, and they haven't had a left back in quite a while now that's reliable and can produce.
He'd be so dynamic in that City team.
Right. Imagine his interplay. He's so used to playing in that possession-heavy manner that he's gotten so good at timing runs, playing in behind. I mean, he plays as a striker sometimes, which is just ridiculous. Stupinan's my biggest shout, and I think if he were in that City team, he would be near the ownership of Holland, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I think that's awesome. I think that's probably the best suggestion we've had in this pod so far.
Yeah. I'm going to drop the mic on that one.
Yeah, I think that's a good stopping point for us, Luke.
Well, thanks for joining us, everyone. We hope that you all have a great rest of your day whenever you're listening. And thanks for joining us.
Yeah, hey guys, thank you for a great 2023. I know me and Luke have both really enjoyed growing, building, and just like communicating with everybody through this podcast. And I'm really excited to see where 2024 goes. So we're happy to have you.
Thanks for joining, everyone.
And we'll talk to you soon, okay?